So commissioners, staff, and meeting participants, thank you for joining us this evening for the October 8th, 2020 regular meeting of the Better Streets Commission. Before the meeting is called to order, I'd like to point out a few things to assist commissioners, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Commissioners, please keep your microphones muted until you wish to speak. You have a hot mic. We're using Zoom to host this meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please only use chat for technical issues such as being unable to hear a commissioner speaking. Please use the raise hand if you'd like to be recognized and able to speak to the commission. For the public to comment under oral communications or any agenda item, emails can be submitted to the city engineer, limited to 350 words, and they'll be read into the record. This limit is set to adhere to the typical 3-minute allowance. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participation from telephone will only allow for listening and does not allow for any feedback. And finally, because we are not all in the same room, all votes must be made by roll call. And so, Barry, if you'd like to call the meeting to order, we can start whenever you're ready.
And of course, I had a mute problem. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:03. And I guess we will, with no objections, dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Jessica, should you go ahead with the roll call?
Sure. Chair Chafin?
Here.
Vice Chair Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Path?
Here.
Commissioner A. Saxena?
Here.
Commissioner S. Saxena?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum with Commissioner Pearson absent.
Okay, next is the orders of the day, which I believe if anybody wants to make any changes to the agenda. Anything there? All right, oral communications. Do you see any members of the public with their hand up, Jessica?
I do not have any members of the public here now.
Okay, written communications.
None have been received.
Okay, it's going pretty smoothly. And next is approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Did anybody see anything they disagree with? I would like to comment, or actually compliment Jessica on doing a very good job of summarizing our conversation about right-hand turns on Ridgecrest, because it was kind of a jumbled mess that we kept going through, and you put it very nice and succinctly what the essence of what we were trying to say was in the minutes. Would anybody like to make?
I'm glad you guys agree.
Hopefully everybody else does. Would anybody like to make a motion that we go ahead and accept the minutes as written?
I make the motion.
Okay. So Commissioner Saxena made the motion. Could somebody second it, please?
Commissioner Pat seconds the motion.
Okay, great. And I believe Jessica will need to do a roll call. Is that correct?
Correct. Chair Chafin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Nelson? You're on mute. Vice Chair Nelson?
Sorry, I was having computer problems. Yes, here.
Yeah, no problem. Commissioner Path?
Yes.
Commissioner A. Saxena?
Yes.
Commissioner S. Saxena?
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Okay, great. We can move on to new business, which is the Winchester bike lane project. Do you want to go ahead and start that off, Jessica?
Sure. So as you all are aware, this city with the town of Los Gatos is working on a class 4 bicycle lane project on Winchester Boulevard from Lark down to Blossom Hill. Ying Smith of the town of Los Gatos has come a few times to talk to us about this project, and since then the town has released a 35% design, which was included in your agenda packet. About 2 weeks ago, the town also did a public outreach meeting that was attended by approximately 30 members of the public on the project. that went relatively well. There are a lot of questions about why the project didn't go further, which the town addressed quite a few of those in their FAQs, which were also attached to your agenda packet. Of note on the proposed plans for City of Monte Sereno residents is removing the one of the northbound lanes on Winchester between Blossom Hill and Lark Avenue, which effectively removes a right turn lane from Winchester onto Dave's, or the dedicated right turn lane on Winchester onto Dave's, which is obviously where Dave's Avenue School is. So there is some concern about some traffic delays there. Other items of interest to Monte Sereno residents would be removing some of the parking, some that affects a couple of residences, in particular directly in the city of Monte Sereno, which town and city staff have been working on that to kind of mitigate that situation for those particular residents. Today, staff is looking for any comments you may have on the design proposal. Also, staff intends on taking this item to the October 20th council meeting for a reimbursement agreement with the town of Los Gatos. So far, the city has not monetarily contributed anything to the design of this project. There has been staff time attributed to this project, but no funds from any budget of ours to this project. And the town is seeking reimbursement for the portion of the project that's going to be completed within the city limits. So that would include about $60,000 this fiscal year to complete some concrete work that has to do with ADA and sidewalks and bringing them up to current code, which would happen this spring. And then more extensive roadway rehabilitation work in the actual bike lane and bollards and things that go with the bike lane would happen over the summer. The town is looking for a not to exceed contract of $400,000. That's using the 35% design. And so it's very conservative. I suspect that the final cost to the city would be significantly less, but it is yet to be seen. So that is what we're looking for this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on this project.
So what, first of all, I think it's a great project. And I appreciate all the work you've put into it. And what has, if anything, has the city council agreed to at this point in time?
So monetarily, not much. The city did apply for a grant for the, not specifically this project, but for the Complete Streets project, where we did commit to contributing funds to improve Winchester. That technically is not this project. The city did provide a letter of support for the town when they were applying for a grant to this project that does offset some of the funds, but so far the council has not committed to anything for this bike lane project. There are funds that we have in general that we put towards pavement rehabilitation, and that is part of this project. And Winchester is intended on being rehabilitated regardless of this project, but obviously that would be at a much lesser, the rehabilitation is only a portion.
So I'm certainly not advocating this, but at this point, the city council could say, "Oh, we don't want to contribute," and that's a theoretically possible outcome.
Correct. And I would say if for some reason that happened, definitely none of the concrete type work would happen because that's all in the city limits. I honestly not really sure what would happen in respect to the bike lane project. I doubt the town would just, not have a gap there, but I think it would strain relationships for sure.
Yeah, I'm mainly curious about what the process has been up to this point. So is it mainly just kind of an agreement that you and the city manager have made with the town of Los Gatos on what you think is reasonable, and then you need to bring it to us in the council? Is that an accurate description? Okay. I was a little surprised to read about the budget. The information that the town of Los Gatos communicated to their committees didn't mention Monte Sereno's contribution. That just seemed a little odd to me. Do you have any idea why that's the case?
I do not. No, I don't know if the overall budget they gave just didn't include the Monte Sereno portion and they didn't mention it, or they just included an overall budget for the project in general. I definitely, we've been, since before they applied for the grant to do this project, they've been in talks with the city, basically asking if we'd be agreeable to it. And, informally, we said yes. So I couldn't tell you why they haven't mentioned it to their committees.
Now, do you know if the $982,000 cost that they have defined includes our portion, or is our portion on top of that?
I would, you know what, I really don't know, to be honest. I couldn't tell you. That doesn't sound like it includes our portion, but I'm not sure what estimate they're going with, because they had a high, mid, and low estimate that they provided us for us to come up with this draft reimbursement agreement. So I don't know if that $900 some thousand is based on a high or a low or a more refined estimate.
Okay. I noticed there's a big difference in the PCI in Monte Sereno versus the PCI on the Los Gatos portion of Winchester. Any idea of why that is? And would we be doing the work, work anyways, given our much higher PCI?
We would eventually. I mean, definitely it's an arterial road that you want to address before it's deteriorated more than something like that's a more localized residential street. So this is something that would come up in the next like 3 to 5 years, regardless of what the town was doing. I assume that the overall PCI in the town sections are lower because there's major intersections there. So there's a lot more turning motions and things like that. And so their average comes out lower for the whole street.
And I know I was curious, thought maybe we should talk about Liz Lawler's comments, our mayor's comments about past desire for a crosswalk. I'm not familiar enough with Winchester to know exactly where that was or how important it was. I was wondering if any of the commissioners happened to hear her comments and are familiar enough with Winchester to have anything to say about it. I don't know. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. Can you elaborate a little bit?
So she had said that, but when she first moved to the city, and Jessica, correct me if I don't remember this correctly, that there was a group of students that had a petition to create a crosswalk somewhere across Winchester, because there was no safe way to cross Winchester. And she requested, and I think she had a location, but I don't remember the location. And she asked if the town of Los Gatos would look into that as part of this project. And I personally have no idea whether it's important or not, but I'm just wondering if anybody else knows anything about it. And Jessica, do you have any, can you elaborate on what I said at all?
That seemed, what you said was pretty accurate. She had said that, right, when she moved here, there was a group of students looking to put in a crosswalk. I did go back through the records I have here at the city, and I couldn't find anything. I'm sure that did happen. We just don't have any formal records of that request. I also haven't heard back from the town about how they, if or how they plan on implementing that. That seemed a bit more appropriate for the Complete Streets project sets to follow up this project. Obviously, there are places, there's really not a whole lot of places to cross Winchester other than the signalized intersections. So I don't disagree that it's needed, but I don't know if that's something that's actually going to come to be with this particular project.
I mean, it's easy to imagine you could throw down some paint and do it, but it's also easy to imagine that would be more dangerous to encourage people to cross, even with a painted crosswalk in the middle of a busy street. So, you know, it's not obvious whether that would be good or bad. I just thought it was worthy of some discussion.
Yeah, it's hard to know when we're we don't know what the location that she might have identified or the students had identified, you know.
Do you live very close to Winchester? Do you know if that is that something that a lot of community members would think was important?
I actually do. I mean, I travel Winchester to Eaton, you know, all the time. That's the way I get home. And I was actually surprised, Jessica. Thank you for sending out the notification of the Complete Streets meeting. It was, I don't know, several weeks ago, because I did actually attend that virtually, but I did not get. I was surprised I didn't get a notification from the town of Los Gatos, because that's that's how I access my house. I can't get there without using Winchester. So, but I don't know.
Mhm. Any other discussion on this topic?
If we think that crosswalk is important, because it is, it just Winchester keep getting wider and wider, and there are very few places to cross it. And I know it's way too long in the project now to start asking for new things to add, but is it possible for us, Jessica, to raise that issue with the town of Los Gatos?
I believe so. I mean, the design's only at 35%. They are working on their next iteration of the design, but the topic has been brought up. They definitely heard the mayor's request and were responsive to it. So I can follow up and see where that landed with them and express a desire from our commission and from the city for that to come to be in this project rather than later on with the Complete Streets project.
Mhm. I'm not even sure I feel that I would like it to be sooner rather than later, unless I've got some data that says there's a lot of people that want it. You know, I'm just really just wanting to learn more about it versus, and that's my personal opinion. I want to learn more about it versus actually request it.
Barry, I'm with you. This is Joanne. So we've now, with this design, you're going to be crossing a bike lane, then the kind of bike barrier lane, the traffic lane, then the center divide turn lane, then the same on the other side. So where that potential crosswalk would go without having some pedestrian protection or islands, it kind of worries me. And I've lived here a long time, and you don't really see people cutting across, or at least I don't cross, or maybe I'm missing them. So, when you were saying that, and I was trying to think where that potential crosswalk would meet. There is a long distance between Lark Avenue and Dave's Avenue, obviously, but where is it? And, then you've got kind of a hill there. So sight lines, where would it be? Yeah, if there is a need for it, it probably should be thought into this, but maybe not done. And the other thing is, there's talk about adjusting the speed somewhere in this report that it may do it. So, if the speed is increased or decreased, that would affect where this, how safe this potential crosswalk would be too.
And one thing
they haven't done on Highway 9, so, and that speed is much more.
And one thing, if you weren't familiar with this or didn't attend the meeting, keep in mind that there will be a Complete Streets project that does a lot of work for pedestrians. This is not meant to help. Generally speaking, it's not meant to help pedestrians at all, but that is something that's planned, but it will require a lot more money. And so I'm fairly confident if that was needed, it would be addressed for sure at that point in time.
Yeah, I would think so, because as I said, after Lark, it just keeps getting so wide and there's so much traffic. Even if we try to put some paint on the street, it would just need another pole and then signage and all sort of things. So I don't even think that it is required beyond a certain point. Maybe that's why they didn't address it. But if they are making street walk I'm sorry, that sidewalks safer and bike lane. I think that should address concern of high schoolers if they are concerned about that they don't have place to go or cross or things like that.
Yeah, they specifically mentioned things like you'd probably want to put in something with flashing lights if you did that, and that would blow the budget of this whole project out of the water.
Right.
And so it doesn't seem like it makes sense. And my gut feeling is the mayor's comments, they were definitely listened to and taken seriously. And that's other than Jessica following up and maybe learning more about it and giving us that feedback, I think I'm satisfied. So Jessica, do we or should we vote on something to make a recommendation to the council? What do you I forget what is on the agenda. What should we do now?
The second staff recommendation on this report was to provide recommendation to council in regards to a cost sharing agreement with the town of Los Gatos for construction of the project. So if you all wanted to take a vote on supporting the city paying the city's portion of this project, that would be helpful. It's not required.
Makes sense to me to be helpful because I think overall it's a good project, and obviously continuing to work with Los Gatos on stuff like this, I think is also very important. So,
I agree.
Me too.
So would somebody like, should somebody make a motion with some wording like that? Jessica, is that what we should do? Someone should make a motion that we recommend the council approves the cost sharing program. Is that?
I'll do that. I recommend that we approve, or is it a motion to approve that the commission recommend that the city council agree to the cost sharing plan for the Winchester, is it the bike, what is it called? Bike path or
Bike lane.
bike,
Yeah, bike lane.
it's not the complete streets, but Jessica, help me out.
Yeah, class 4 bicycle lane project.
Class four bike, Sharon, our portion of the cost for the class 4 bike project on Winchester.
And we need a second.
I second it.
Okay. So we can go ahead and take a vote, I believe, Jessica.
Okay. Commissioner Chafin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Nelson?
Yes.
Commissioner Peth?
Yes.
Commissioner Asexina?
Yes.
Commissioner Asexina?
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
I have one more question that's not related to the motion. I was thinking this was going to be paid for with our Measure B funds, but obviously I was confused. What are our Measure B funds going for a joint project with Los Gatos? I'd forgotten.
So by Measure B funds, do you mean the formula funds we get every year? Or
Yeah. For bicycle and pedestrian.
Oh, yes. So the money that for this year, for the approximately $60,000 that would be coming from this fiscal year, is money that's left over from the pavement management project, which was funded with Measure B funds, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. But wasn't there dedicated bike and ped money?
Yes, that's for bike and ped education.
Yes.
So you can't use it for capital projects.
But there's a separate bike and ped capital projects, I thought.
There are grant funds for that.
Yeah. And were there any that we are going, they're grants only?
Right, which we did receive for design of the Complete Streets project. But
that's what I was getting at. That's what confused me. So way back in the day, I confused this and the Complete Streets project. And you mean the Winchester Complete Streets?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Sorry, that was my confusion. Okay, so let's move on then. With no objections, we'll talk about Bruce Avenue.
Okay, so this is circling back to us. If you all recall, this kind of came about when we did our Dave's Avenue community meeting last year. Quite a few Bruce Avenue residents came and commented about traffic on their street. From that, the city did a traffic study. It was found that there is indeed some speeding on that street, considering it is so close to the school and the speed limit there is 20 miles an hour. I attached all of the previous staff reports to jog your memory a bit of the process of how we got to the conclusion that that was an appropriate street to do some traffic calming measures on. We went ahead and did our whole process of establishing a traffic calming policy for residential streets. And now we are back to the Bruce Avenue project after talking about it, I believe either last meeting or the meeting before, about potential placement of speed bumps and a bulb out. So today in the staff report, I have a proposal for two different proposals for speed bump locations. And I apologize in the figures that I did not label the little yellow marks as speed bumps. So hopefully that was clear to you. If not, that's what those are. And then also mock-up visual of what a temporary bulb out would be, with the idea that if these successfully calm the traffic in the area to the satisfaction of the residents, that these improvements would be made permanent on Bruce Avenue with permanent installations. So today I brought this to you all to get your feedback on what is proposed here on Bruce Avenue, and if the commission agrees with the staff recommendation or has some amendments to the staff recommendation, then this could be brought forward to a community meeting and a vote of the Bruce Avenue residents before installation of the temporary measures. And if you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Whoops, I was muted. Did you want us to weigh in on whether you go with 2 or 3 speed bumps?
Yes, ideally. So I included both of them because the Federal Highway Administration's recommendations are kind of vague. It's just that they are in a set of more than one, and that they are, you know, so a range of distance apart. So obviously 3 are more expensive than 2. 3 also tear up the road a bit more than 2 because it's affecting vehicle movement in 3 places other than 2. However, it slows people down because there's more. So it's a trade-off. I would, my professional opinion is 2 is appropriate, but 3 would also be appropriate as well.
Anybody have any comment on that?
I think 2 would be better than 3, so we do less damage to the street. And I think I remember when we had that meeting. I mean, I think it was the first meeting I observed when I was not a commissioner, and people had real concern about tearing up the sidewalk and water drainage and things like that. So why don't we keep it to minimum and make it comfortable for everyone while calming the traffic and reducing the speed on this road?
That seems pretty reasonable to me.
I agree.
So I too, I do like the 2. I have a couple of questions though. I like 3 because the placement of the one close to the Bruce Avenue and Poppy corner, and Doreen and I were out there, and that's the one where the kids really are standing and where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. So I'm wondering if, you know, there is a way to put that. I like the placement of 3 because the third one is closer to that corner. So I don't think there's a chance to speed up between the speed bump and the bulb out as much. And the other question I have is, when I look at 2, they're located in driveways. And when I look at 3, and I don't know if that's just, you know, where they ended up when you evenly spaced them out, But is there, when you place these, is there a thought to place them in front of houses rather than at driveways? Because I'm thinking if I'm backing out and these are in between two people's driveways, you know, if you've got to back out one way or another and you're always running over that speed bump when you're backing out, it's gonna irritate the neighbors, I would think, or, you know, whoever's living there. Where if they were in front of a house, you might not impact them as much. So just a couple of comments.
Yeah, definitely their approximate placement. So we wouldn't put it in front of a driveway or really, right, not close enough to a driveway where every time you backed out of your driveway, you'd be running over the speed bump. So that was just an approximation. They would definitely could be moved like 10 or 15 feet in either direction to avoid being directly in front of someone's access to their driveway.
Great, great.
There is a stop sign at Poppy, right? Or wrong?
Yes, there is.
Because even the setup of 2, it looks like it's only 3 house lengths. Oh, 4 house lengths, excuse me, from a stop sign. So it doesn't seem like people would pick up very much speed.
I think you'd be surprised at how fast people could pick up speed when they're in a rush.
Okay.
I mean, I don't disagree with only having 2, but I do think that what Joanne brought up about having it closer to the Bruce and Poppy intersection is just, when we spent that morning out there, there's just so many kids and so much traffic at that intersection. Just, there's a lot of potential for, you know, an accident there. So I think traffic should be slowed down as much as possible.
So Jessica, is it make sense to move 1 or both that direction and stick with 2, or to get 1 closer, do we have to have 3?
No, you could still have 2 and just shift them over. Yeah, there's not a problem with that. The spacing would need to be adjusted, but yeah, I definitely haven't noted that to have something closer to the Bruce Poppy intersection.
So do we want to recommend that we stick with 2, but move at least 1 closer to Poppy? Do people feel comfortable with that approach?
Works for me.
Works for me too.
Okay, all right. And then I would really like to hear what Doreen and Joanne have to say about that bulb out, since they, I think, are the ones that first advocated for it and looked at the, you know, what was going on there. Does that satisfy what you feel needed to be done?
So it's Joanne, I'll comment. So we heard support from neighbors, we heard support from parents, everybody was for bulb outs. The design of this one seems, so I think it needs a bulb out on both sides of the street.
I was just going to ask you, Joanne, because I thought that that's what we had talked about, because the volume of kids who come from that little cut through on the other side, I think that you know, the corner on the, would that be the south side, needs to be addressed too.
Yeah, so bulb outs on both of those corners. Yeah, both opposite corners of that street. And the other thing is we need to get that sidewalk that leads to that bulb out. But there were people just pouring down that little bit of a hill that's hidden there. You can't see it. And just, you know, overcoming that corner where opposite the bulb out that's designed. The other thing is, you know, there needs to be some protection, but this seems to me that it's really a pedestrian bulb out to just stand there. And so when you direct traffic, if you have a bulb out this side on both sides of the street, I don't know how you're going to get 2 cars through there. So it, you know, in my visualizing it, I saw a pedestrian bulb out that was just, you know, a kind of a refuge there on the corner, not necessarily directing traffic from this far back all the way around it. What do you think, Doreen?
I agree because it surprised me when I saw it, and I see what it's accomplishing because it's almost something similar to, what they put in on Vineland to slow people down from making that turn too quickly. But I do think we need something on that opposite corner. So are you saying just something like maybe trimmed down a little bit? I don't know what, like you said, more of a pedestrian one rather than a car focused bulb out?
Right, just a place for them to stand. And it does need, it is great that this offers some kind of protection visually, vertically up to, so that people see it,
I
but
mean, but do
it's
we
more
have
of a
the
place to
space to do
stand.
that?
Well, and the other thing is where that ivy is in the picture of the bulb out, I believe some of that land may be, city property or public right of way. It seemed to me that there were fire hydrants and stuff in there that are all buried in that ivy. So I don't know where that lot line actually ends. So you may have more room to work with. Yeah, but I'm trying to think of a good place where there is more of a bulb out, and maybe it's down at the corner of Poppy and Dave's, where people are stopping. I don't know, but yeah, more just a pedestrian refuge than a car, guiding cars around that whole corner.
But so do you really mean the bulb out is kind of at the crosswalk only? Is that what you mean?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Jessica, I don't know, engineering wise, is that a wise design for this? Is that done? Or, I'm sure there was reasoning behind the design that you gave us. Yeah.
So typically when you do a bulb out, it's something to this scale. I do understand what you're saying. And I think considering that there's going to be a speed bump relatively close to this intersection, that it would still be effective to have something smaller. So I'm trying to visualize Poppy and Dave's, and I kind of think I know what you're referencing. So my only issue is that I would have to research what something temporary would look like for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Do you think you could fit two of these, one on each side, and still guide 2 lanes of traffic through that corner?
of the size that we have right now, it would, I mean, it's a 4-way stop intersection, so it would require people to move over and be like, right, 2 cars couldn't pass each other at the same time. But, technically, since they're already stopped, it's not really a traffic issue. But yeah, I do have it noted here to look into something that's a bit smaller.
Yeah, because you do have a lot of traffic. So the drop off that's coming on Poppy, they're making left turns on Bruce to get out of there. And there was bike and car traffic. So they're coming down Poppy and they're going to make a left on Bruce to get out to Winchester. So you definitely have a lot of 2-way traffic, and then the pedestrians on each corner.
I think if we could do something smaller on both sides, I think, Joanne, when you and I were out there, I think that's what we had kind of envisioned, right?
Right, because people are standing there trying to peek around the cars to, in the corners to see if they can walk. Yeah, so they're
Yeah,
standing.
exactly. Because there, all the scooters that came down from that little hill, I mean, it would give them a place to congregate before they had, a time to cross,
Right, right.
And to clarify, the little hill, you mean from the left, from that the old
Yeah, from
elderly,
like that little
elderly
old
home?
community. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking now also that we could create a situation where if only one car can fit there, then people, and there was cars queuing to go to school and cars trying to leave school, we could create a gridlock situation.
Yeah, it could be ugly. Yeah, you need to keep traffic flowing through there if you can.
So,
But they would be able to, I mean, theoretically, people come to a 4-way stop. As soon as someone starts through the intersection, somebody else can go. I mean, you're just talking about there's very little area where they wouldn't be able to pass because it's not going to infringe on the intersection too much. So I think most people, if you do the, 1, 1, 1, 1, I don't think it's going to slow down traffic that much, because you still have the intersection to pass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if somebody pulls forward to the stop line immediately after the car turns right from Bruce to Poppy, though, we want to make sure that doesn't block the left turner coming from Poppy to Bruce, even though the intersection
It
will be
shouldn't
clear.
if they're at the stop sign. It shouldn't,
Mhm,
but
mhm,
you know,
mhm.
I guess they will have to make a larger right-hand turn from Bruce to Poppy because of
Mhm,
the bulb out.
mhm.
I think it just depends on what it could potentially look like doing a smaller version of the
Mhm,
bulb out.
mhm. I guess this highlights the importance of doing a trial version.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
exactly.
point.
Mhm. Another, not to change the subject too much, but I'm wondering if we want something that would allow bikes to pass through separately from the auto lane, if that's possible or desired.
I think that was in our original, when we started looking at this whole street, it was, would there be a bike path? Would there be a pedestrian path? How would everybody get on there? And that's when the neighborhood was not thrilled with the pedestrian traffic and changing things. And there was not a lot of, are you talking about on Poppy or on Bruce?
I'm just talking about the bulb out only.
Okay.
Because if there's bikes, I don't know if bikes come in on Bruce. If you guys observed that?
There were parents on bikes with their kids on scooters. There were kids walking. There were kids on bikes and the parents walking. They, in my opinion, they tended to be groups of people in mixed modalities, I guess.
Mhm.
But they were, either families or groups coming together.
Mhm.
And the bikes were not, needing a bike lane or bike area like we're going fast, we're using this to get somewhere. They were
Mhm.
kind of all just having a nice journey to school.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm just concerned about kind of at the bulb out, forcing them out right with the cars. That's what I'm thinking.
And I don't think they need to be that far out there, just a little bit. There's only sidewalk there and sidewalk on one side, on the side with the stop sign and the
Mhm.
marked up bulb out. The other side doesn't even have a sidewalk. So the only reason they have to get out there past that stop sign on each side is, to kind of look at traffic and to see. So it wasn't a huge bulb out. It was more just an area so they could sit there on the, on the curb kind of and be
Mhm.
prepped to go.
Like you said, a little bit of a refuge if they
Mhm.
had to wait rather than just like being on the street.
Mhm. But this is also a traffic calming measure too, right? Because with the bulb out, cars have to go slower.
Yeah, and I didn't see traffic going fast there, but what I did see is people, they need to stop back far enough that they can see the pedestrians and go through them
Mhm.
slowly. And I think that's almost the interaction between, can the cars see the pedestrians? Because the pedestrians are back behind the tree and the bushes and they don't see them. And then, the pedestrians, can they, make contact and see where those cars are and make sure, they see them before they go across. So, and I think the cars rolled through there because they had to pull up far enough to see things. I didn't see a lot of people speeding through there, although we had some comments that they do.
Mhm.
Yeah, we didn't observe them, but I'm sure the people who live on Bruce did. But you're talking about like that corner opposite, the one opposite the stop sign that we can see in the photo.
Mhm.
That's just there's not a lot of visibility, and I was surprised at the number of kids, primarily on scooters, that came flying down that hill. I just, that's why I think it'd be great to have a refuge on that side as well.
Mhm. Well, Jessica, is it reasonable to ask you to make another stab at it based on this feedback and possibly with some members, if they see what they, in another example of what they think is appropriate, maybe they could send you a picture of it.
Absolutely.
Because we've got time to work on this, right?
Yes.
Are there rules about, it being a school crossing and stuff? Are there design, guidelines or rules about that need to be followed, or is it pretty much what fits the situation?
Right. It's actually particularly around schools, things are a little looser because it's right, the specific traffic around the school and what type of school it is and how many kids go to school on bikes. So traffic calming and is a much more fluid thing, especially in school zones.
Doreen, we could take this offline, but I'm wondering if you and I want to go out there again and just kind of scope it out and re-examine.
Oh, I'd be happy to do that. Is school in session with COVID?
No, it isn't, but I think
Yeah.
we can visualize people there.
Yeah, I know. But I'd definitely be happy to meet you there and we can, take a look and maybe come back to Jessica with some ideas.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Or if you guys have, I mean, if we have some time, we can wait a couple of months, and I think schools are supposed to open by January. So if we can wait 2 months, then you'll get a real picture, because right now most of the people are working from home and nobody's going to school.
Yeah, although I do think,
Joanne, I'm not sure I want to wait till January. I think, Joanne, you and I could probably go out there and just walk it and maybe take some pictures and come back to Jessica with some rudimentary ideas and, just to kind of keep the ball turning or the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I've got a vision of what I think would be appropriate. And I'm wondering, is there a mechanism I can share that with everybody, Jessica, without Brown Act violation?
If you send it to me first.
Send it to you first, okay. I mean, I'm not saying I want it a certain way, but I just got, something that I think makes sense and accurately meets what everyone else is asking for.
That'd be great.
Yeah, but I don't know if I can find, I bet I can easily find one, but I'm definitely not sure. Okay. Any more discussion on this? Okay, I don't think there's any reason to take a vote. We just plan on discussing it again at the next meeting, which I believe you're not going to be at, Jessica. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Before we move on, can I ask, have we made any movement to doing sidewalk on Poppy on the left-hand side of the street that where we think the right of way is? To finish off that piece of sidewalk, or would that be part of this final, Bruce Avenue project after the test goes in?
So that would be whatever we end up with a final solution. So even if we didn't end up doing, like, we brought the whole temporary thing to a vote and the residents decided that they didn't want anything for traffic calming at all, there still is a project on the books with the city to install a curb and gutter to deal with their drainage issues, and the sidewalk would be part of that project.
Okay, so that's on Poppy leading up to the old folks place.
Correct.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. That's good news. Thank you.
That seems like the sort of thing we would want to make sure would align with any bulb out that had a waiting area.
Well, I guess wouldn't we do like the temporary bulb out, and then if that ended up being something that was decided that we should move forward with, then we would make sure it was all worked in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, the sidewalk would feed right into the bowl out. Yeah.
Well, if you guys go back and look at it though, just maybe think about that and make sure that it's practical. It's possible that it's not practical for some reason.
Yeah, it's been a few months, so we can, Joanne, we can maybe do that next week.
Great.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. Anything else?
Thank you, Jessica, for all that work putting this together. It looks great. Really help
Mhm.
realize it.
Mhm. Okay, shall we move on? Highway 9 user safety. Two things come to mind. One was the Commissioner Saxena and I were both going to reach out to other people in other jurisdictions. And I did talk to a gentleman named Rob Rennie. I think that's his first name. I had gone on a couple bicycle rides with him with my club, and he is both on the town council for Los Gatos, and he's also a board member of the Valley Transportation Agency. And I expressed my concern to him and told him that our commission was interested in improving safety, and we were a little unsure of where to start, so we were looking for any help or guidance he could give us. And he gave a nice long reply, which at the bottom of it says, "Please don't forward this message. Help me avoid making Brown Act violations." So I don't want to forward it. But he did also copy. He also said that he thought Monte Sereno should take the lead on this. And then he copied one of our council members who I do not personally know. His name is Javed Elahi. I don't know if anybody knows how to correctly pronounce that. And
You're pretty close.
Pardon me?
You're pretty close. It's Javeed Elahi.
Okay, thank you. And he replied to both of us and said that he will look into it. But I didn't hear anything else from him. And I thought before reaching out to him, I would, kind of share what happened and see what comments the other commissioner members had about this. And I don't know if you had any luck talking to Rishi Kumar. Were you by chance able to get a hold of him?
No, I couldn't. And I updated Jessica on it. Like, he has been pretty busy with fires and running his Congress campaign and things like that. I did email him, and when I didn't hear back, I reached out to few people who are not few people, like one person who I know in unofficial capacity who are working on his campaign. And they told me that since all these things going on and his primary focus is on election right now, and my impression was like, since it is election and he would want to sweep Monte Sereno vote, so maybe he will focus on it more. But looks like I was wrong. He's more focused on whatever he's doing for his campaign. So he's just putting issues aside as of now, and I will reach out to him after election. Maybe he will have more time, but right now it just doesn't seems like that he will pick it up or he will have time to do anything about it, since election is just less than 3 weeks away.
Yeah, now that I think about it, it's probably a particularly bad time to reach out to him because he's got to be so distracted.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I really thought that it would be a good opportunity for him to just get to know people this side of the town, and even if he had just started the issue with their commission or their council, it would have been beneficial for us. But yes, they have a lot on their plate.
Okay. Does anybody have any suggestions on where I should go do you happen to know, Jessica, this councilman, and if he has any particular interest, would have any more interest than others in Highway 9 safety?
Not
Uh,
particularly any more than any other council member. I'll definitely follow up with the city manager and see if he had mentioned anything to him about it. But I
Mhm.
haven't, not to my knowledge, is he any
Mhm.
more interested than any other council member.
Mhm. Yeah, it seemed a little random to me why these two guys must just know each other. It seemed a little random that he copied him on it. But
Is it possible that he's on the same committee or something? Because our city council members are supposed to be on different county committees and things like that.
he's definitely not on the VTA board, but
Ah.
it's certainly possible they're on other committees together.
Yeah, that's possible.
Mhm. Mhm. So you can like maybe share this with, is it appropriate for you to share this with the city manager and see if he's got any feedback on whether this councilman has any particular interest, or is that not a good idea, Jessica?
Oh, I'll definitely ask the city manager about it.
Mhm.
It's maybe that he doesn't know anything about it at all, but
Yeah.
yeah, I can definitely ask.
Mhm. Okay, and then maybe you could send me some feedback, because I should at least reach out to him and to follow up and tell him that we're continuing to be interested in Highway 9 safety, and if he wants to engage with us, that would be great.
Will do.
Okay. And then the other thing, I think you were going to mention that there's been delays in phase 3. I don't know if everybody's aware of that. Those pedestrian improvements. You want
Right.
to update everybody?
So Caltrans is being Caltrans, and we still haven't received an encroachment permit to do a survey to finish up that design that then we have to also submit to Caltrans. So it looks like we won't have a final design to do that gap closure project until early next year. I guess a lot of them are still working remotely and just things are backed up. And so they said they are several months behind.
Mhm. Does that cost us money or just time?
Just time. Yeah. The consultant is on an hourly basis. So if they aren't doing anything because they're also waiting for Caltrans, we're not being charged.
Mhm.
Jessica, is there anything we can do to help do some outreach or anything to push that along, write letters or anything? Or we just need to wait till it cycles through how it's going to go?
Yeah, I think once we have a design, there will definitely be some opportunity to do outreach and push it along. But without an approved design from Caltrans, there's really nowhere to go.
On a related thing, I did put in the crosswalk at Masal is on Highway 9 is in bad shape, the paint itself. So I did put in a request to Caltrans. We'll see. They've actually been pretty responsive to when I've complained about things on Highway 9 before that need to be repaired. So we'll see if it gets painted and addressed.
Are they responsible for the maintenance of that? I mean, I know it's on Highway 9, but I thought I wouldn't have been surprised if Los Gatos was responsible for it since they wanted it.
I wasn't sure. I thought about starting with Los Gatos, and then I thought,
Mhm.
if I go to one of the cities and say something needs to be fixed, they tell me to go to Caltrans. So,
Mhm.
and they will push it back if it's not right and say
Mhm.
Los Gatos. But I'll let you know if I hear that. I haven't heard back yet.
Mhm.
I actually have a bit of information on that. I can't speak to exactly who is fully in control of that intersection, but I do know that the town has a project on the books to upgrade that crossing. So it could be that it hasn't been maintained lately because they plan on replacing the flashing signal with something that's a little more current. And so maybe perhaps they haven't maintained it because they know they're going to replace it. I don't know what their schedule is, but if you wanted more information, it's definitely, actually, I'm looking at the Connect Los Gatos webpage right now, and they have a webpage on it. So there is more information there.
Didn't we get briefed at a meeting about that, I believe?
Yes, I do remember something
Yeah,
about fancier lights.
yeah. Because there's definitely visibility issues and signs in the way at that. So I will check with the Connect Los Gatos and see if I can find out about the paint on that, because if it's too far out, they should paint it now if they're in the,
Mhm.
but also on the design of that, if they're going to improve it, there are some issues still there.
Are you talking about the street itself or what paint? Just curious.
No, the crosswalk needs to be painted, the
The
yellow.
crosswalk on the street on Highway 9.
Right, yeah.
Mhm. Okay. And anything else with Highway 9? Okay, I guess in that case we can go ahead and move on. Jessica, do you want to talk about the street signs?
Sure, this is just a quick update. Thank you for those who have gotten your assessments back to me. I have about 3/5 of the signs covered so far. This is really good data. Thank you so much for being so thorough and including signs that weren't in there and getting rid of signs that were either not in the city or that were duplicates. So far, there's about 50 signs that need some kind of immediate attention for either being faded or obstructed. And so once I have the rest of the data, I can get a contract together to have all of those items addressed at once, hopefully at the end of winter or the beginning of spring. So thank you very much. And if you still have more data to give to me, just feel free to email me whenever you have the chance.
If anybody's having trouble getting it done for any reason, I'd be happy to do another street or two. So you could go ahead and send your stuff to me with this street or streets you'd like help with. My son got a dog, and so we managed to combine dog walks with street sign analysis. I have one comment, which I probably would have been better for me to send an email to you privately, but I had neglected to do that. And I just got the information recently, Jessica. And that is and you may have heard about this because I believe they complained to the city. The very first house on the west side of Ridgecrest, we recently put in park off pavement signs. And they believe that where we're telling people to park on their property, there should be no parking signs there. And so, are you aware of that? Do you happen to know what I'm talking about?
I do. And I have spoken with that resident. He's also brought it to the attention of the city manager. That area is in the city's right of way, so people can park there. That signage was there previously. So yes, if the question is, am I aware of the situation? Yes, I am.
Okay. And so that's the right of way.
Yes.
No. Okay. How far does the right of way extend? Do you happen to know?
Usually it's about 15 feet off of the
Okay.
travel pavement, it's different in different places, but that area, I think he is concerned about people driving further off into like his landscaping or fencing, which I can understand the concern.
It is important that people get way off pavement there, because we used to have people park kind of on the pavement, and people come around that corner so fast, it's actually really dangerous when somebody is parked on the street right there. Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. I had no idea about the right of way. And so next time I bump into them, I'll discuss it with them. But they probably already got that feedback.
And I have just a suggestion. I had Dave's Avenue and it was really hard, very, very hard, because it was crisscross, this end of the street, that end of the street, the list was not sortable in any, because of, the fields, even when I got an electronic version. But I'm just wondering, as I was out there doing this, if there's at least an electronic version of this so that it could be for long-term data management, so it could be updated and worked with. And the other, I kept thinking, I'm having to look up addresses and, so there was a GIS portion to this, and I wasn't sure whether it would be better to actually drop pins and, use my Google map on it. But it just seemed like a very, you know, in very rudimentary way to do this data, and especially for, you know, the city to track it in the future. So I don't know if there is a GIS program or if you guys use it, but I know, you know, there's Google Earth Collector and ArcGIS Collector and stuff that could, all this data could be put into. So just a thought for the future.
Any comment on that, Jessica? That seems,
I know, I completely agree that the way the data that I gave to you was just the data that someone else had collected, that something I was able to provide to you quickly. And I know it was difficult because it wasn't necessarily sequential going down any particular street. And right, for places like Ridgecrest and Dave's Avenue, the longer streets are difficult to kind of parse out what was happening. So I think now that we have some clarification, because you guys did a lot of the legwork of us sorting through the things that were just incorrect, I can definitely look into getting some GIS placement for some kind of mapping or something that makes it a little more straightforward for the next time around when we do this assessment.
Yeah, I think it would be a lot easier for you guys to manage it. Yeah, and I wouldn't want somebody else to go through the pain if they didn't have to.
did you do what I did? And when I gave the lists back, I had like numbers written so that we knew what order they were in.
Jessica sent it to me in a soft copy form, and I tried to manipulate it, but it couldn't be sorted. So I literally had one end of Dave's Avenue down, you know, started at Winchester, and then it jumped over here, then it went down and across, and the, you know, whoever had labeled them said it would be across from an address that didn't exist, and it took a while. It was, but that told me that it was work that needed to be done too. So.
Yeah, that sounds similar to my experience on Ridgecrest.
Yeah, you just have to work through it. Yeah.
Okay.
Like a good way to manage it going forward. Yeah.
That's a good suggestion. Okay, any other comments on this one? Science.
Mary, you were all garbled on my end.
I just said I have any more comments on the street science.
Yeah, you're garbled, Gary.
Oh, no.
Barry, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much clearer.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay. Any more comments on street signs?
Hello all. So Barry just dropped out. So let's maybe wait a couple minutes and see if he logs back in real quick. Otherwise, we can do the last item without him, but let's give him a couple minutes and see if he logs back in.
Sure.
Thank you, Jessica.
I'm very sorry. Has the problem been fixed?
You sound clear now.
Okay.
Welcome back.
I shut the app down and restarted it. So, and if that happens again, maybe Doreen, you could feel free to take over. So I don't know if anything happened in my absence. I had asked if we had any more comments on the street signs. And if not, and you still hear me, we can move on to the engineer's report.
Okay, just two brief updates in the engineer's report tonight. One is that we are wrapping up the pavement management project for 2020. I believe, I'm trying to remember, Beck and Hernandez was slurry sealed today, and with the backer are going to be slurry sealed and closed to traffic tomorrow. And then everything will be striped on the 22nd, and that will be it for this year. Other streets that were improved this year included all the streets off of Twin Creeks Road, but excluding Twin Creeks Road, Seabury, and then also Bancroft off of Ridgecrest. So that is was combined funds from both last fiscal year, since due to COVID we couldn't get out a project last fiscal year, and then the monies for this fiscal year. So there won't be another pavement project until next fiscal year, 21-22. And then the other update I have is that two of our commissioners' terms are going to end at the end of the year, and that's Commissioner Peth and Nelson, and the city clerk should be, well, we should have a city clerk in the next few weeks, a permanent city clerk, who will reach out to you to reapply if you wish. And that is all I have for this evening.
Jessica, can I make a comment on Withy Road? Has that been paved yet? I know it was patched, you know, or the cracks were drizzled, whatever that is. Has it been paved?
That's scheduled for tomorrow.
So, and I don't know, because we've paved our driveway, but there is a portion of Withy Road after Beck, but on one of those curves where there's been slides and problems before. I mean, the city's had problems there for quite a while, but they're on the downhill side. So this, you know, the uphill side is okay. If it slides, it comes down onto the road, but the downhill side has a partial curve on part of it, but has, you know, been sliding and you can see it. Anyway, there are portions of that pavement that were drizzled with the stuff that they put into the cracks, but the cracks are actually several inches deep. And so you can see the road is just eroding away there. So I'm sure the company that did it knows about it, but just so you're aware, you know, they poured that stuff in the cracks, but the cracks are still 2 inches or 3 inches, 4 inches deep. And that hillside is just aching to go in a bad rate and stuff. So hopefully this keeps some of the water out of there, but there's definitely a problem there, and you guys may be aware of it, but it's one of these years, that hillside's gonna need some work.
Yeah, definitely on more rural roads, it's kind of hard to know where to stop on some of the patching. So we did do some major patches on some other areas. But if we're thinking about the same place, we didn't do it because it's just so far gone that it would eat the budget basically for the entire paving of the whole city. So I'm not saying that we want it to like go and totally fall under, but it would be a separate like Withy Road project to shore up that hillside.
Yeah, it's gonna need retaining wall work and yeah. Okay, just so you were aware, because I thought, well, it's putting a Band-Aid on it. Hopefully it helps a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware of that spot you're talking about. Did you say that to do it right, would eat up the paving project for the whole city?
Right, like we wouldn't have been able to do any other road this year.
Yeah, so it's sadly, sooner or later we'll have to do it. I have a couple questions, if I'm not interrupting anybody. I wondered if and I think we already talked about this, but you know, I was looking at the minutes from the last meeting, and I wonder how we make sure we learn about any beach traffic mitigation measures Los Gatos does going forward. Do you feel like there's mechanisms in place where we're going to get that information, Jessica, or would you not even be aware of it necessarily, so we would never hear about it, possibly?
So I will say that the town just recently started a new town engineer. Their former town engineer went to be the public works director in Pacifica. So I believe he started like the beginning of last month. So far we have a really good relationship. He's just kind of learning what's going on in the town, which will, include beach traffic this next summer. So I think between both the engineering staff and then also their transportation planning staff, that there's a pretty good relationship there between the town and city staff that we haven't had in the past. So hopefully they'll be better at getting information to me beforehand. If there are things like beach traffic that the commission is particularly concerned about, that's something I could proactively bring up with the town staff.
Yeah, I think that would be good. They had those no right-hand turn signs on the North Santa Cruz, which, I didn't remember them going in. That's just one example. I don't know if they've been there for a long time. It's no right-hand turn on Saturdays on any of the side streets turning south onto North Santa Cruz. So that I kind of bumped into one of those, and that's what made me think of this. Another question. This was suggested by one of the VTAB members, so that it's very useful for a committee like ours that whenever the city has to do a complete streets checklist, which they need to do for certain projects, that at least gets shared with our committee. I don't know how often you have to do one of those, and if that request makes any sense. And any comment on that, Jessica?
So we have to fill those out basically annually for Measure B funds. And typically, since we use our Measure B funds just for doing street pavement maintenance, there are no, basically I fill out the form and saying there are no complete streets components. When we do projects, say if we were to do a sidewalk project or one of the more significant projects like we did on Palos Verdes, this past year, that would actually have a form to fill something out with. I can definitely share that with the commission. I don't know how useful it would be though for like just the annual paving project.
Well, maybe at least once we could get it just so we'd understand what it is. And then if we decide that it's not extra work for you to share it, is it?
No, not at all.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So at least for the short term, anytime you have to fill one of those out, please share it with us so that we just have a better understanding of that process. I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have any comments? And I guess the only other thing is if anybody feels that there's something else we should be tackling, let Jessica know and she'll share that with me and we can get it added to the agenda if appropriate. But otherwise, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.